Today we will discuss about superantigens. So this belongs to biological class antigen type 3. So there is a type 1 and type 2. So this belongs to superantigens, belongs to class 3. So what happens is it activates a T cells without getting processed by antigen presenting cells. So normally what will happen is once the antigen is captured by our body, it will be processed by our antigen presenting cells, then it will present into our T cells. So but this superantigen will directly activate the T cells. It will bypass the first process, that is antigen presenting cells. So what are the antigen presenting cells? The antigen presenting cells are dendritic cells, which is the most common the cell. So the receptor of superantigen is V beta of the T cell receptor. There is a site like V beta which is present in T cell receptor. So this superantigen will get bind to that V beta site. So what happens is then it will combine with MHC, that is a major histocompatibility complex 2 of the antigen presenting cells and T cells. So this T cell activation leads to release of cytokines, and again B cell activation leads to production of the non-specific antibodies that leads to hypergamma-globulinemia. So first I will explain with the diagram. See, so once the antigen enters into our body, it will be processed by this antigen presenting cells. So example I told like dendritic cells. After that it gets processed. The T helper cells will be having the major histocompatibility complex 2. Now this antigen presenting cells, it will present this antigen to MHC2 of the T helper cells. Then antibodies will be produced. So this is a normal mechanism. The antigen will enter into one body, processed by this antigen presenting cells, and then it will submit into the MHC2 complex which is present in the T helper cells, then which leads to the production of the antibodies. So this is a normal mechanism. So what happens here is, so this super antigens, so the antigen will be entering into one body. It won't get processed by the antigen presenting cells. It will bypass this step and directly it will go and bind to the MHC2 complex of the T helper cells, and that leads to the overproduction of the antibodies that leads to hypergamma-globulinemia. Okay, that's all. So it will be directly get binds to the, I told already, like V beta receptor site of the MHC2 of the T helper cells. Okay. So this antigen will bypass this step and it will bind to the V beta receptor of the T helper cells. So this V beta region, it is a binding site for the superantigen. So some of the examples of the superantigens are, first it is a bacterial superantigen. It is a toxic shock syndrome toxin number 1, exfoliated toxin and enterotoxin. So these all are present in the Staphylococcus aureus. This Toxic shock syndrome toxin is responsible for toxic shock syndrome, and exfoliative toxin, it is for staphylococcus skin scalded syndrome, and enterotoxin is responsible for food poisoning. So next it is in streptococcal pyrogenic exotoxin A and the C, which is present in streptococcus for the necrotizing fasciitis. And then mycoplasma arthritis antigen, Yersinia enterocolitica and Yersinia pseudotuberculosis. These are all are example for the bacterial superantigens. Coming for viral superantigens, it is an Epstein-Barr virus and cytomegalovirus, and the nucleocapsid, which is present in the rabies, and HIV protein, that is NF. So fungal superantigens example is Malassezia furfur, which is a causative agent for the pityriasis versicolor. So what are the diseases associated with superantigen? As I told already, it's a toxic shock syndrome toxin responsible for toxic shock syndrome, and enterotoxin is responsible for food poisoning, and exfoliated toxin A and B is responsible for staphylococcus scalded skin syndrome. Okay, this is what I explained already. So antigen enters into our body, get processed by antigen presenting cells, and then it will bind to the V beta receptor of the T cell receptor. Okay, again it will get processed by MHC2. Okay, and then antibodies will be produced. In superantigen, this antigen will directly bind to the MHC2 and then V beta receptor of the T cells. Okay, that leads to the hyperproductions of the antibodies. Thank you.